Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I just wanted to come through and chop it up with you guys really quickly here about the stream that I decided to go for in my second year. So I opted to go for the mental health and health stream. Like I mentioned in a previous video, U of T offers 5 streams. So there's mental health and health, there is human services management, I think that's what it's called, children and families, gerontology, social justice, and diversity. So those are the 5 streams that you can choose from. I think gerontology is the only one that actually needs one more credit, one additional credit to graduate. Every other stream needs the same amount. I think it's 17 and 18 respectively. So basically, yeah, I decided to go for the mental health stream. And, the main reason for that is because I believe that in racialized communities, mainly the Black community specifically, we have to start creating more spaces that allow for us to talk about our traumas, us to talk about our mental health, us to talk about the fact that we're not okay. Historically, culturally, whatever you want to call it, we know that this is a very, very, very touchy place for us as a community. And one of the common complaints, I think I said this in a previous video, but one of the common complaints that I get often from clients is the fact that they don't necessarily trust the people that are coming in there and doing the work with them because there's zero relatability. Right? There's zero that they connect with. There's zero. And that isn't to say that someone needs to be from a particular racial background or have the same ethnicity or have the same culture in order to do the work. But there is definitely a correlation between, how individuals receiving the service feel about the service provider, especially as it relates to things like their culture, their race, and their ethnicity. Some people are more willing to work with someone that looks like them, and that's just the reality. And at the end of the day, representation matters, right? And so I, like the fact that U of T is, working, because I'm going to say it's still a work in progress. Okay. I'm not going to lie. It's still a work in progress for that particular institution to ensure that there is more diversity. They need to ensure that, the people that they enroll into the program, right, fit the populations that are on the margins. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that we're advocating for. We're advocating for the people who don't have a voice to advocate for themselves. We want to amplify their voices, and we want to give people who resemble these people that are in the margins an opportunity to do the work. And I think that that's vital, especially as it relates to mental health. As a future practitioner, as a future clinician, I would like to ensure that I am providing the best service for, my clients. And whether or not they look like me, doesn't really hold too much weight, because I think that I'm going to be phenomenal. Okay. I'm going to be phenomenal regardless of who's sitting in front of me. But, it's extra special, and you get that extra sauce, and you feel good when, you've helped someone that looks like you through their stuff. And, someone who has, lived experience with certain things, it's all the more fulfilling when you're able to put a smile on their face. I want to be able to help, create spaces where we can talk about our traumas free of judgment, stigma, trauma, re-traumatization, just really operating from a very, very trauma informed, solution focused, client focused, strength focused, all the other kinds of focused lenses that are out there to ensure that, we are helping our community members heal. That's vital for me. And to be completely honest, if you think about, the current world that we live in, right? We're living in a pandemic, right? For some of us, over a year, right? In lockdown, you're in one day, you're out the next day, you think you're going to be out one day, you're not. And then, like, just the wave of emotions that have accompanied, this pandemic has just made it very difficult. And it's actually exacerbated issues, that racialized people, Black people, face, right? So we are actually undergoing a double pandemic, right? And by that, I mean the pandemic as it is, COVID, coronavirus, and then dealing with the socioeconomic barriers that existed prior to COVID, right? And the extra layers that, um, exist. And then, on top of all of that, we have these social injustice issues, right, that are arising for our neighbors south of the border that are pretty traumatic, right, or actually horrific. And so when you pencil all of those things together and you look at our community in this light, it speaks volumes of how much more support how much more support we need to ensure that our mental health is okay, and knowing that it's okay not to be okay, right? And having professionals that are on your side that are willing to work with you through your double pandemic, right? I think now is a very urgent time. I think now is a very poignant time. I think now is a very eye-opening time, while it should have never been, because we should know that these barriers existed prior to, and there really should have been some work to really dismantle, white supremacy, and continuing to work through the kinks that this particular culture has imparted on everybody. Okay, but that's a whole nother video. Okay, but I'm not gonna get into it now. Right? Like it sucks that it took what I'm trying to say is that it sucks that it took a pandemic for people to see that there are people that are actually struggling in real life, right? And so again, I think it's imperative now for mental health workers, for counselors, for therapists, for social workers, for practitioners, like people of the helping profession, to really pull together, right, and really support these communities in the best way that we can. I find that it's going to be a very challenging time. Like once a pandemic is over, it's going to be really challenging. I came across a report from CAMH, and I'm going to leave the link to the article in the descriptions box below so you can kind of peruse that on your own time. But I came across an article that spoke to the likelihood of suicide being ridiculously high as a result of the pandemic. We can't forget the fact that, suicide is a thing across the board. Suicide is a thing across all communities. Suicide is a thing in our community, right? And so we need to prepare ourselves and our youth in particular, in terms of how they cope and they manage with their stress and their anxiety and their depression, whether it be diagnosed or undiagnosed, really working to curtail that, because this pandemic has just made it very difficult for people to manage, right? Imagine, being at home in a really hostile, hectic, maybe even violent environment, and not being able to escape it, not being able to go anywhere to escape it, right? A lot of people use the outdoors as a form of escape, as a form of release, as a form of just getting away and focusing on yourselves, right? So it's really vital that we look at mental health and everything that comes with it from that lens. Like it's really shutting people down. I also, decided to go into this mental health stream because I feel like, while it's where I want to be, I still feel very new, very green, and just very uncertain, right, about all of the clinical assessments that are out there, CBT, DBT, crisis intervention, peer support, narrative therapy, affective therapy, psychodynamics, structural stuff. Like I'm really trying to get a good grip as to what my professional kind of acumen is going to be once I, finish this particular program. And I think a lot of the courses that I've taken so far is really trying to help me uncover exactly kind of what methodology I'm going to be using and what my actual clinical practice is going to entail. But as a mental health worker or therapist or counselor or whatever it is that I decide to get into, I really, really feel like, going into the mental health stream is going to be super beneficial for me to actually learn about some of these assessments that we do with our clients. I think it's vital to be able to really, get to the root of what this particular person's either diagnosis or undiagnosed mental health challenge is vital. That's the only way that you'll actually be able to provide them with viable clinical interventions and create a plan for them, and really help them through their stuff, is you being able to assess them properly. And so I'm really excited about the clinical intervention pieces that I'm going to be learning about next year. And I feel like that's what's really going to propel me in the right direction as a future mental health counselor. Also, what I want to say too is that I feel like a lot of people in this particular cohort this year are going in to the mental health stream. There's so many people going into the mental health stream. I could not even believe that some of the summer courses that they offered, there were only like 2 of them that were mental health, and like they were full within 2.5 seconds. You know what? That actually reminds me. I'm going to do another video about the enrollment process for some of these courses, because let me tell you something. They have you waking up at the crack of dawn to get in there, and it takes 2 seconds for all of these courses to be freaking full. It's so frustrating. But that's for another video for another time. I just wanted to come through today and share with you guys kind of like, my thought process and my reasonings for going into the mental health stream specifically. I want to see us win. I want to see racialized people, Black people live in their truth, be okay with not being okay, and just really letting their guard down, being vulnerable, and doing so in safe and supportive spaces that will allow for them to be the best version of themselves. Okay, so that's why I'm doing it. Now, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead, leave them in the box below. I don't know why it took me so long to say that. You know what I'm trying to say. Just leave your questions there for me. I will try my best to get around to them and answer them. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. You want to, okay? And I'll be back to make some more social work related content. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.